The galaxy was half asleep when the transmission began, a soft flicker across the hollow net, an unremarkable flash in the billions of daily news feeds. On every alien world, tired bureaucrats and smug admirals paused their morning routines as the image of a burning dome appeared. White smoke, tiny figures running, the faint, awful sound of children screaming. At first, no one believed it was real. The Galactic Empire's network censored such things, too messy for the morning broadcast. But the footage spread like wildfire, faster than any algorithm could suppress. The words under the image read, Europa Colony 7 Orphanage, Human Civilian Facility. In the Harkin broadcast hall, a reptilian news host chuckled dryly and turned to her co-anchor. An accidental discharge, they say. Humans are fragile things. It's not the first time they've misplaced their offspring. The audience of scaled and feathered dignitaries laughed politely. Across the stars, others joined in, because mocking Earth was a safe sport. Humanity, after all, hadn't raised a weapon in 3 millennia. They were known for films, coffee, and sentimental music. Not for war. Then the feed changed. A single human man appeared on screen, sitting in a plain gray room. Behind him, the Terran flag hung like a memory, blue and white, a little faded, as if unused for anything official in decades. His hair was graying at the temples, his eyes unreadable. The caption read, Captain Elias Ward, Terran Diplomatic Corps. He smiled gently, the kind of smile you give a neighbor who's dented your car but insists it's fine. To our friends in the Empire, he began, his voice low, calm, and almost kind. Thank you for reaching out so quickly after the incident. We appreciate the apology and the explanation. He leaned forward, his hands folded neatly on the desk. We understand accidents happen. Truly, we do. There was a long pause, long enough for billions to sense that something about the air had shifted. Then he added, almost as an afterthought, We'll simply ask for transparency. Nothing more. He bowed slightly. The transmission ended. Alien officials exhaled in relief. How polite. How restrained. The humans would grieve, light their candles, write their poems. The council declared the matter settled. But not everyone felt relief. Somewhere in the deep void between Mars and Jupiter, motionless satellites, old, civilian, and supposedly decommissioned, suddenly whispered to life. Subspace channels flickered open. Encrypted pings bounced between forgotten outposts. Quiet humans at coffee counters and museum offices paused mid-sentence as their wrist implants pulsed once, then went dark. In the capital of the Empire, Grand Admiral Vorex received the report but dismissed it. Humans are sentimental, not strategic, he said to his aide. They'll mourn with candles, not cannons. He laughed, showing crystalline teeth. They're domesticated now. Domesticated. Elias repeated the word hours later, sitting alone in the Terran embassy on Luna. The orphanage image replayed in silence before him. His jaw twitched once. He turned the screen off, stood, and stared out the window toward Earth's blue curve. Domesticated, he murmured, almost amused. He reached for a small metal box on his desk, a relic engraved with names. Children's names. The door slid open without sound. A young woman entered, uniform crisp, face pale. Sir, the council's apology has been received. No reparations offered. They called it structural misalignment of targeting sensors. Elias chuckled softly. Did they now? How sincere. Orders, sir. He turned toward her. His tone was still gentle, but the light behind his eyes changed, like sunlight glinting off the edge of a knife. Stand by for silence protocol. All outer colonies to blackout status. Civilians included. Her breath caught. That'll isolate half the network. I know. He smiled again, the same neighborly smile the galaxy had seen. Let them think we're mourning. Hours passed. Across human space, lights dimmed. The Terran trade gates, lifelines of interstellar commerce, suddenly closed without announcement. Ships queued in confusion, sending polite inquiries that went unanswered. Within 24 hours, every human embassy across the galaxy shuttered. Even the jovial music feeds, those endless playlists that played in alien cafes, fell silent mid-song. In the alien media, laughter faltered. Memes mocking Terran overreaction grew uncertain. A few analysts warned of something darker, but they were dismissed as paranoid. Humanity, after all, had dismantled its armies centuries ago. That night, Admiral Vorex's aide reported something odd. "Sir, our deep radar detected large energy signatures around Saturn's orbit, civilian vessels, all registered as freighters." Vorex waved it off. "They're probably carrying teddy bears for the next charity drive." But the aide hesitated. "Their engines are military grade, and they're moving in formation." Vorex stared. "Formation?" The aide swallowed. "Yes, sir. And, sir, they're broadcasting nursery rhymes. In English." For a long moment, no one in the command bridge moved. The faint signal echoed through the speakers. "Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are." In his office on Luna, Elias watched the same data unfold in quiet satisfaction. Around him, the room was dim, the hum of machinery the only sound. He set down his coffee mug and said softly, "They always mistake kindness for weakness." He opened the old metal box again and pulled out a small, worn paper, a child's drawing. Crayon stars. Stick figures holding hands. At the bottom, written in shaky handwriting, "For Uncle Eli, come visit soon." He traced the letters once with his finger, then folded it carefully and slid it into his coat pocket. Outside the window, Earth rotated in silence, and behind it, the void seemed to hold its breath. In the alien capital, panic began to ripple. Communications to Terran space were failing. Automated trade beacons responded with cheerful, pre-recorded messages. "We're taking a moment to reflect on peace. Please hold." "Reflect on peace?" Vorex muttered, pacing. "What does that mean?" The aide didn't answer. The next morning, Galactic network cameras captured a final transmission from Earth, a simple still image. The Terran flag, fluttering behind a single line of text. "Peace is the space between apologies and consequences." Across the stars, billions of aliens stared at the message, puzzled, then uneasy, then afraid. The feed cut out again. Somewhere in the silence, Admiral Vorex looked at the stars and muttered, "They'll sue us." His aide shook his head, pale and trembling. "Sir, they just went silent." Outside his window, the constellation that marked the Sol sector winked out one by one. Communications arrays, trade beacons, entire navigation networks, gone. "Silent?" Vorex whispered. A soft voice came from behind him, transmitted through a crackling signal. It was Elias Ward. "No, Admiral," he said with that same neighborly politeness. "We're just thinking." Then the line went dead. And for the first time in 3,000 years, the galaxy realized that silence from Earth was not peace. It was the sound of humanity remembering how to prepare. The invitation was written in gold script, sealed with a wax insignia few living beings had ever seen, a blue sphere encircled by laurel leaves. The letter began politely, as all Terran correspondents did. "Dear esteemed representatives of the Galactic Empire, we humbly invite you to Earth for a courtesy discussion regarding the Europa incident." It sounded harmless. It sounded like tea and sympathy. 3 days later, the most powerful species in the galaxy landed on a planet they once called quaint. From orbit, Earth looked peaceful. Clouds drifting like slow breath, continents lit with soft amber hues. The delegation of alien envoys stepped out onto a runway lined with uniformed humans who didn't salute. They simply stood there, silent, eyes unblinking. Inside the newly refurbished United Terran Assembly, the hall gleamed with a warmth that unsettled visitors. Old wood. Sunlight filtered through stained glass. Classical music floated faintly. Beethoven, though none of the guests knew it. The tables were circular, covered with linen, the scent of roasted coffee drifting like nostalgia. Captain Elias Ward greeted them at the entrance, hands clasped, posture relaxed. "Ambassadors," he said with a smile so genuine it almost disarmed them. "Welcome back to Earth. I trust your journey was smooth." The first to respond was Chancellor Run of the Corval Dominion, his skin a shimmering blue-green. "It is an honor, Captain. Your invitation was unexpected. Tragedy has a way of teaching manners, Elias said, motioning for them to sit. Please, coffee or tea. We've imported cream from actual cows. Hard to find these days. The aliens exchanged looks. Polite refusal came instinctively. They'd been warned of Terran toxins, but curiosity won. The aroma was intoxicating, like warmth turned liquid. Elias poured the dark brew himself, his movements graceful, measured. Around the table sat the galaxy's most influential, the insectoid director Zarek, whose people claimed to have perfected war, the soft-feathered diplomat Val of the Myrians, known for their moral lectures, and the stoic Grand Admiral Vorex, who had ordered the strike on Europa. Each tried to appear composed. Each failed, a little. Elias raised his cup. To peace, he said softly. They mirrored the gesture, hesitant. The clink of porcelain filled the silence. For a time, they discussed formalities, the investigation, reparations, the need for restoring trust. Elias nodded at all the right moments, jotting meaningless notes on a pad. He listened intently, his expression patient, kind. Captain, Vorex finally said, clearing his throat. We regret the incident deeply. It was not the Empire's intent to harm non-combatants. We've dispatched engineers to prevent such targeting malfunctions. Elias set down his pen. Non-combatants, he repeated softly. Children, Admiral. The term you're looking for is children. The room went still. Vorex shifted. Yes. Tragic, indeed. Elias smiled again, as though forgiving a child. We appreciate your condolences. We humans are rather sentimental about offspring. They remind us why peace matters. Val tilted his head. Your species breeds excessively, does it not? I suppose attachment follows abundance. The others chuckled nervously. Elias didn't. He looked at Val with calm amusement. Perhaps. But we have a saying. Every child is a future we bet our lives on. He sipped his coffee. Some debts, Ambassador, don't go unpaid. The feathered diplomat swallowed, feathers ruffling in discomfort. Director Zarek clicked his mandibles. Surely, Captain, this is not a declaration of hostility? Elias's brows lifted in mock surprise. Hostility? Good heavens, no. We're having coffee. Hostility would require. Oh, I don't know. Guns? Bombs? Fleets? He leaned back, smiling lazily. We dismantled ours ages ago. You know that. The lie hung in the air, sharp and glinting. Behind the conversation, soft music changed tracks, something upbeat now. Synth tones, quick rhythm. Few recognized the tune, but its title flashed briefly on the wall display. Take on Me, Aha, 1985. Vorex frowned. Is this Terran war music? Elias chuckled. Pop. From a more innocent time. Helps me think. He tapped his datapad, and the wall shifted to display an image of the destroyed orphanage. Smoke. Fire. Tiny hands clutching one another in the rubble. You see, Admiral, he said softly, we humans document everything, even our grief. Especially our grief. Run bristled. Must we relive this? Elias's voice softened further. Yes. Because memory is a weapon too, Chancellor. Just slower. There was no threat in his tone, but every alien in the room suddenly understood that they were prey being observed by something ancient. When the silence became unbearable, Elias stood. If you'll excuse me, I'll have my aide bring pastries. Cinnamon rolls. Earth specialty. He walked out. No guards followed him, just the steady rhythm of his boots against marble. The aliens exhaled in collective relief, some whispering translations of cinnamon. But the moment he left, the lights flickered. The wall screens flashed briefly. Encrypted Terran code streams disguised as ambient art. To alien eyes, meaningless. To human systems, a signal. Across 10,000 light-years, hidden fleets reposition themselves by fractions of degrees. Val leaned toward Vorex. They're too calm. It unsettles me. Vorex grunted. They're a minor species, diplomat. Their nerves imitate strategy. The insectoid Zarek scraped his claws together. Still. They stare as if they already buried us. The door opened again. Elias returned, carrying a silver tray. Apologies for the delay. The oven is temperamental, like politicians. He grinned, setting pastries on the table. The sugary scent filled the air. Run forced a laugh. Captain, surely you don't intend to start a war over an accident? Elias met his gaze, that same polite warmth never fading. Of course not. We wouldn't start a war. He took a bite of the pastry. We'd just stop pretending it's over. The laughter died before it began. He placed the tray down and gestured toward the wide windows overlooking the gardens. Vast stretches of green, dotted with children playing. Alien eyes followed, surprised. You still allow them near government facilities? Val asked incredulously. Elias's tone was mild. They remind us what's at stake. Every decision we make has their faces on it. He turned toward Vorex, smile gentle as dawn. Tell me, Admiral, do your empires build gardens near your command centers? Vorex shifted uncomfortably. We build fortresses. Ah. Elias nodded. We build both. Keeps things balanced. The conversation withered. Outside, clouds gathered, rumbling faintly. Rain began to patter against the glass, and for a fleeting second, lightning illuminated the skyline, rows of towers humming with quiet power. The guests soon made excuses to depart. Elias saw each one off personally, shaking hands, thanking them for their time. His touch was firm, warm, human. At the shuttle bay, Vorex paused. Captain, he said stiffly, you are a curious species. So polite. So restrained. Elias tilted his head, as though pondering a compliment. Restraint, Admiral, is what predators learn when prey starts watching. Vorex frowned. A threat? Elias smiled, eyes twinkling. A courtesy. The Admiral hesitated, then stepped into his shuttle, muttering curses in his native tongue. The engines roared, lifting the craft into gray clouds. Elias stood there long after it vanished, rain dripping from his hair. His comm implant blinked once, an encrypted signal. He whispered, proceed with Phase 2. Across the orbiting satellite ring, invisible Terran ships unmasked their energy signatures for a heartbeat, just long enough for the Empire's sensors to glimpse them. Then they vanished again. In distant command centers, alarms began to sound. And far above, in the cold silence of space, a message repeated across every Terran frequency. We appreciate your apology. Forgiveness is easier before the shooting starts. The galaxy began to understand that the courtesy calls were over. The blackout began not with thunder or explosion, but with silence, an almost courteous vanishing of light across 1,000 worlds. One by one, the stars of the Galactic Empire dimmed, not in the heavens but on the maps that tracked them. Beacons winked out. Stations went dark. Trade lanes filled with drifting ships, their engines dead, their crew whispering that the universe had simply stopped. In the Imperial Command Citadel, Grand Admiral Vorex awoke to emergency sirens. The walls flickered, then died completely, leaving only the red glow of auxiliary systems. Report! He barked, rising from his chamber. His aides stammered that communications were gone, every channel jammed with what sounded like children singing. What kind of signal? Vorex demanded. The aide played it. The bridge filled with a hollow, human melody. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. It looped endlessly, eerily calm. The Admiral froze. That song had been playing during the Terran talks, background music in their embassy's garden. His throat tightened. Trace it. We can't, sir. It's everywhere. On the other side of the galaxy, in the cold quiet of Saturn's orbit, hundreds of civilian Terran ships drifted like sleeping giants. Inside one, Captain Elias Ward stood before a panoramic viewport, his reflection framed by the ghostly curve of the planet's rings. Behind him, his crew worked in absolute silence, no chatter, no wasted breath. Every face held the same disciplined calm that terrified anyone who'd ever seen it before. Confirm full blackout across alien networks, Elias said. Aye, sir. replied Commander Ronnie, her voice low. Empire communications are blind. Defense systems are looping false data. They think their fleets are still in orbit. Elias nodded. Good. Keep feeding them the illusion. They'll cling to it like religion. He turned to the console and entered an ancient passcode, one never spoken aloud, only whispered between generations of Terran tacticians. The screen flared alive, revealing a single file. Orphan Protocol, locked since 2499. He hesitated for half a breath, then pressed his thumb to the scanner. The ship's AI, an old model named Martha, built centuries ago, spoke in a gentle human accent. Captain Ward, confirm activation. Do you understand the consequences? Elias's eyes flickered toward the small paper folded in his coat pocket, the child's drawing he always carried. I understand. Then the world will remember, Martha said. The hum of power deepened, like a pulse beneath the hull. Across the fleet, engines reawakened, not with the bright blaze of propulsion, but a muted, predatory thrum. The formation shifted, elegant, deliberate, like sharks circling unseen prey. Elias's voice dropped to a whisper. Broadcast to all Terran assets. Code phrase, Mother's Wrath. Ronnie hesitated. Sir, that's total mobilization. Even the sleeper colonies. They took children, Elias said, his tone soft but final. The galaxy will learn what that costs. Elsewhere on distant worlds, ordinary humans looked up from their breakfasts as the lights flickered once, then stayed dim. News screens turned to static, replaced by a single message. Please stand by. In alien academies, scholars argued over the meaning. Some dismissed it as malfunction. Others remembered the warning on Earth. Forgiveness is easier before the shooting starts. Within hours, the Empire's outer fleets began to vanish. Not destroyed, just gone. Their last transmissions were confused bursts of laughter, static, and, in some cases, lullabies. By the third day, panic seized the core worlds. Refugees poured into the capital, whispering of ghost ships emerging from the dark. No one saw them coming, only the trails of ion light, the ruins they left behind, and the eerie absence of debris. Admiral Vorex convened his command council in near-total darkness. We're dealing with hackers, he insisted. The humans couldn't possibly. A voice interrupted, transmitted through the emergency channel. Calm. Familiar. Human. Good evening, Admiral, Elias said pleasantly. Apologies for the interruption. I understand you've lost a few systems. Vorex snarled. Ward. What have you done? Nothing permanent, Elias replied. Just a power nap for your empire. Think of it as enforced reflection. Do you realize the scale of your crime? Elias's tone remained casual. I'm aware. You destroyed children. We're simply responding in a language you understand, strategic logistics. Behind Vorex, officers exchanged glances. The line wasn't just coming from one source. It was everywhere, echoing from their own transmitters. The human fleet was using the Empire's communications to speak through them. You can't win this, Vorex growled. You're outnumbered 100 to 1. Elias chuckled softly. That's wonderful news. Saves ammunition. The Admiral slammed his clawed hand on the console. You're monsters. Monsters? Elias repeated, amused. We're the ones who built orphanages, Admiral. You burned them. The transmission cut abruptly. In the void above Saturn, the UES Bethlehem led the fleet into warp formation. Elias watched the coordinates align. The Empire's shipyards, their academy worlds, their weapon foundries. He closed his eyes, breathing in the silence. Execute. From every Terran vessel, a ripple of light burst outward, quiet, colorless, invisible to the naked eye. Quantum warheads slipped through space like whispers. On the Empire's industrial planets, reactors overloaded, folding upon themselves. Cities vanished without sound. Back aboard the Bethlehem, Elias stood motionless, his reflection split by the glass. His voice was a murmur meant for himself alone. They called it an accident. Ronnie turned toward him. Sir, reports coming in. Multiple sectors gone dark. No retaliation. They can't see us. Elias nodded. They won't. We'll leave them something to remember instead. He ordered one final transmission to the galaxy. Simple, haunting, encoded in every alien frequency. A child's voice reciting, "How I wonder what you are." Across the stars, billions listened. For the first time in known history, the Galactic Empire's night sky went completely black. Navigation systems failed, trade collapsed, and fear became the new currency. In the Terran fleet's silence, Elias closed the file labeled Orphan Protocol and whispered, "Deactivate after 36 hours. We'll let them breathe." Ronnie frowned. "Mercy, sir." Elias looked at her, a weary smile forming. "No. Memory." Outside, Saturn's rings shimmered faintly, reflecting distant explosions like fireflies in the dark. The human fleet disappeared into the abyss, leaving behind nothing but stillness and a legend in the making. Somewhere, deep in the Empire's ruined communication array, the last surviving transmission played on loop, a faint human voice saying, almost kindly, "You'll never call us civilized again." And then, even that light went out. The galaxy that had once shone with 10,000 suns now lay in quiet ruin. Great empires reduced to drifting fragments, stations turned into monuments of smoke and static. The void itself seemed to mourn. No trade convoys crossed the stars anymore, no laughter echoed in the orbital markets. Only the faint hum of damaged satellites remained, replaying the same human lullaby on infinite repeat. In what had once been the Galactic Council chamber, now half-collapsed and lit only by emergency bioluminescence, leaders of surviving worlds gathered around a cracked table. The air smelled of ozone and despair. Chancellor Run sat with his shimmering skin dulled to gray. Director Zarek's mandibles no longer clicked with authority, but with nerves. Admiral Vorex, gaunt and sleepless, stared into nothing. "The Terrans haven't spoken in weeks," Run whispered. Their fleets withdrew beyond the Sol perimeter. No transmissions, no demands. Nothing. Zarek twitched. "Nothing is worse than war. It means they're thinking." "They're done thinking," Vorex muttered. "They've become what we always feared." Silence stretched like the void outside their windows. Somewhere far below, a reactor hummed uncertainly. The galaxy's mightiest civilization had been humbled by a species it once called harmless. Then, as if summoned by their dread, the chamber's hollow projector flickered to life. Static cleared, and the image of Captain Elias Ward appeared. Calm, clean, his uniform unblemished, his face as unreadable as ever. The aliens froze. "Good evening," Elias said softly, as if addressing old friends. "I trust you've had time to reflect." Run's voice trembled. "Captain Ward, we beg, whatever vengeance remains, let it end. Entire systems are gone." Elias tilted his head, thoughtful. "Gone? Oh no. Not gone. Preserved, in memory." Vorex snarled. "You annihilated them." Elias smiled faintly. "Annihilation implies permanence. We're not cruel, Admiral. We're educators." He gestured, and the hollow expanded into a star map. Dozens of glowing red points pulsed across it. Each of those worlds will remain uninhabited for 3 centuries. It's our way of giving the galaxy time to mature. Run collapsed back into his chair. "This is madness." "No," Elias said quietly. "This is consequence." Behind him, through the holographic transmission, they glimpsed what looked like a field of white flags fluttering. Thousands of them, marking graves. Human children's names carved into marble. The feed panned slowly across the memorial. At its center stood a tall woman in black, holding a child's toy, a small stuffed bear scorched around the edges. She placed it at the monument's base and whispered something the audio didn't capture. Elias turned back to them. "You took from us the sound of laughter. We replaced it with the sound of silence. Fair trade." Zarek's voice clicked weakly. "You've destroyed balance. The galactic economy, Elias's tone remained almost tender. "Empires mistake comfort for balance. You built palaces on bones. We built orphanages. We both invested in the future. Ours just paid off differently." He paused, gaze softening as though he pitied them. But we're not gods. We're only human. And that, he said, voice lowering, is something you should have feared long ago. The transmission began to distort, his image fragmenting into echoes. Before it vanished, Elias spoke one final line. Peace was beautiful while it lasted. Don't let it happen again. The feed cut to black. The council sat in absolute stillness. No one breathed. Finally, Vorex whispered. They don't seek dominion. They seek memory. Outside the chamber's shattered dome, the remains of the Empire's fleets orbited like debris caught in prayer. Among the ruins drifted unmanned Terran drones, releasing silver capsules that glowed briefly before bursting into vapor. When scanned, they revealed no explosives, only archives. The capsules carried recordings of human children's voices, laughter preserved in the dust of war. On a quiet moon far from any remaining power, Elias Ward stood beside the same memorial scene in the transmission. Wind brushed his coat as he stared at the endless field of white flags stretching across the plain. Each one bore a child's name. The air was sharp with cold, but his voice was soft when he finally spoke. They'll study this, Martha, he said to the ship's AI through his earpiece. They'll try to understand what went wrong. Martha's voice replied gently. They will fail, Captain. They think morality is mathematics. Elias smiled faintly. Maybe that's the lesson. He knelt, adjusting one of the flags that had tilted in the wind. Beneath it lay a small data core. He pressed his thumb against it, and a new message encrypted itself into Terran channels. Operation Aftermath Education. Phase 2 Standby. Behind him, Commander Ronnie approached, her face shadowed beneath the dying sun. Sir, she said softly, the council's collapsed. The rest of the galaxy's begging for treaties. We've won. Elias didn't look up. We didn't win. We reminded them what happens when they forget we're animals pretending to be civilized. Ronnie hesitated, glancing toward the flags. What will you tell Earth? That we found peace, he said. Just not the kind we hoped for. A cold wind swept through the valley, carrying the faint sound of something like distant singing. It was a recording looped by the memorial systems, the voices of the children lost on Europa. Elias closed his eyes, listening. They sound alive, Ronnie whispered. They are, he replied quietly. As long as someone remembers. For a long time, neither spoke. Then Martha's voice returned through the comm line. Captain, multiple colonies request authorization to join reconstruction. Elias rose slowly, dusting frost from his gloves. Authorization granted. Let them rebuild, carefully. He looked at the horizon where dawn barely touched the clouds. And keep watching the stars. Of course, Captain, Martha said. What shall I tell them if the aliens return? Elias's expression softened to that same polite smile he'd once worn at the peace table. Tell them humanity's sleeping. And to knock quietly. The AI's silence was almost reverent. As he turned to leave, Ronnie stopped him. Do you ever feel guilty, sir? For how far we went? Elias looked up at the sky, a black expanse freckled with dim, broken constellations. Every day, he said. But guilt is the tax of love. And we paid in full. He started toward the shuttle. The engines hummed faintly, reflecting off the memorial field like candlelight. For a fleeting moment, it looked as though the stars themselves were returning. From orbit, sensors across what remained of the Empire caught a final burst of Terran signal, a simple text line broadcast in every known language. We didn't destroy your worlds. We just turned the lights off so you'd stop pretending you were gods. In the following days, silence spread again. But it no longer felt like defeat. It felt like judgment. Elias watched the last of the ships disappear into the dawn and whispered to himself. They'll call it peace again one day. They always do. And when the winds quieted, the only sound left in the valley was the laughter of children. Soft, eternal, echoing through the ruins of gods.